Okay, let me see here.
If you have a video link for for Facebook, let me have it.
We are live. Okay, let's wait a few more moments before we're telling people. Oh yes, I can see us. Oh, volume down. It's always funny at the beginning with me anyway. Okay, let me put this off. Okay. Wonderful. Now, hello everybody. Yes, you're on. Hello everybody, welcome to this English Live on Bridges of Light International. Well, I am mega excited tonight and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, as always, I want to thank you that you're going to be spending this hour with us. Thank you that you're watching this later on. Thank you, Bridges of Light International. Thank you, Live. And also tonight, thank you very much, Illi. I have with me the pleasure of having Illi Adato, who is, well, it's for me personally, is one of my biggest master and mentor that I've ever encountered. He is a therapist. He's the founder of the London School of Systemic and Family Constellations. And so he's going to be telling us whatever you want to know about family constellations. So as always, everyone, please write, ask questions. And by the way, hello, Carmela. Hello, Angela, Simona. Hey, hello, Chiara. So I've been talking already too much. You know me already, but you want to know my guest. So anyway, thank you, Illi, for giving us this time. And I'm very, very happy to have people to meet you. So who is Illi? As always, I allow people to tell whatever they want to tell us, but I like you mostly to tell us what brought you to do what you do and what is it exactly that you do.
Hello, Luca. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak and to offer something for my world, for my reality. So what is it that I do, or how did I get to it? I'll start with what it is. What is it that I do?
Yeah.
I facilitate processes for people to be able to see in a different way, see a situation, a relationship, a challenge in a different way. So systemic and family constellations offers a new or different way to see.
Mm-hmm.
And how I got to this, I got to this through my own journey of searching and learning and expansion. Uh, it involved a major collapse, and the resurrection from that collapse brought many gifts to me. So at the core of my wound, I found strength.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say that this is pretty much the guiding line for the work that I do. People come to me usually with a challenge. Nobody comes to me and tell me how beautiful, uh, the holiday was, and how wonderful the progress of life is. Progression of life is. I usually deal with challenges, so people come with problems, with issues, and in the systemic way of seeing things, we can see beyond the personal, beyond the individual. And I think that's one of the strengths of systemic observation, systemic approach, systemic lens, as we like to call it, is that it gives you a very, very different way of seeing not only yourself, but what is it that influences you, your behavior, your challenges, and what works and what doesn't work in life. So in a nutshell, that's how I got to it, and that's what I do.
Thank you so much. So, would you say that family is where we learn how to relate with anybody else in life?
It's a good question. Family is a system. Systemic approach, systemic constellations deals with systems, which means it doesn't only consider, let's talk about you as an example, okay? So it doesn't only talk about you, Luca, in a narrow, focused way exclusively. No, it doesn't do that. It includes a wider and wider and wider and wider perspective over the personal system. So it's you, your body, your emotional body, and what goes on within it. It extends then to the family system. So it's the family of origin, which includes your mother, father, and siblings, if you have any. And then it doesn't stop there. It goes even further. So it goes wider into the extended family. So grandparents, great grandparents, and what happened in their lives. And then it doesn't stop there. It goes even wider. There's a wider system that we all belong to, and that is the system of culture. Yes. The culture to which we were born to, the culture that we grew up in, the culture that we had to migrate to. You know, we live in London. It's full of people who come from all over the place. So that all of these, each and every one of these ways of observing is looking at a wider and a wider and a wider system. And then why do we do that? Because we get answers, we get information in each and every one of these stops, in each and every one of these expanded, it's like a zoom out. Yeah, I start with you and then I zoom out and then I zoom out a little more and I zoom out a little more. And the zooming out is where we collect the information. This is where the guidance arrives, and new ways of seeing, new attitudes can be learned, and a whole lot of insight that relates to very, very big forces that influences each and every system. And you know, your system for this case, my system in this case, is no different. So we are mapping, we are creating a map with a constellation. We create a map of all these elements, and we begin to see how they affect the individual and how they facilitate the problem, how they sustain the problem, or what is going on that maintains that problem, that challenge.
Thank you. You had me thinking of something that I guess it's a question that I imagine everybody who's on this group may be wondering about. And by the way, whoever is watching us now, if you have any questions, please, this is the time, so write it in a comment and I'll ask Illi right here, right now. But you talked about forces and mapping and getting information from wherever. Okay, so the question is, how much would you say that when you work with somebody in a systemic way, but I'm talking about you, Illi, in particular, and I say that because I think that's why I really consider you to be a great master. So how much of your ability comes from knowing, let's say, the systemic theory, and how much of you is let's say invested or engaging in doing whatever that you do that truly seems like almost magic. In other words, how can you get some information about somebody, and I have experienced it firsthand on myself and on people I've been seeing Illi working with on groups. How is it that you can get an information so accurately, you know, you hit the nail on the head, and where does this information come from?
So when we create a constellation, when we work in a systemic, with the methodology of systemic therapy, as the constellation being the tool, the central tool, one of the things that we rely on when we create this map, the map of representatives, you know, let's say, we'll use you as an example, okay? So let's say, Luca, you come with a crisis. Usually people come to me with a crisis. And what is a crisis? First, crisis is, from my perspective, a way for our old patterns to play up at the point in which they simply do not work anymore.
Right.
Okay, so a crisis is where what we used to do, the way we used to do it, doesn't hold water anymore.
Right.
And a crisis is a manifestation of these unuseful anymore habits, behaviors, attitudes, and they play at the loudest possible volume.
Right.
This is why we call it a crisis. Okay, so whatever we used to do doesn't work, and it now plays up very, very loud. So we can't avoid it anymore. It's like somebody's grabbing us by the throat and say, okay, you got to do something about it, because otherwise, something terrible is going to happen.
Yes.
So that's what the crisis. We get pushed into that point where the patterns are not serving us now. So you come and you say, okay, I have this crisis. This is happening in relationship, in health, in my relationship with money, something to do with it can be absolutely any kind of crisis, any kind of trouble. And I'm going to ask you to first tell me a little bit about it. We're going to have an interview. This is how it works.
Yes.
And then I'll be listening in the interview to pointers, to indicators that helps me to hone in on where in your system these potential points of crisis are being triggered or being affected. So we can go back into childhood, we can go back into the previous generation. So what happened in your mother's life, father's life, what happened in great-parents' life. And then I'm going to ask you to invite from the group. This is when we work in a shared space. If we work online, we do it in a slightly different way, but it's always in the same principle. You are inviting representatives, so people who come and stand in to represent your mother, your father, maybe a sibling, maybe a grandparent, maybe more, maybe country of origin, maybe religious belief. We call these abstracts. So the people are representatives of people, of family members or other elements in the system. And other things which are not human, so country of origin, beliefs, and other elements are called abstracts. A combination of abstracts and representatives standing in the space. Now, what happens is, as they stand in the space representing, they begin to have certain attitudes towards each other, certain way of relating to each other, maybe turning one's back to one another, maybe getting closer, maybe feeling some kind of an attraction or even a sexual charge. And these things arrive to the representatives through what we call the knowing field. And the knowing field is an electromagnetic charge that surrounds everything alive. You can look at it like an aura, our own aura. And the aura has certain information about who we are. You can take a picture of the aura and some people can read it according to the distance and the shape and the color. So this knowing field, this field of this charge that holds information, holds this information not only about us as people, it also holds information regarding situations. So if there is a conflict or there is a relationship of any sort, that will also have its own charge. It will also have its own electromagnetic field, which inside of you can find information about that situation.
Yes.
So in a constellation, the representatives are the point of connection to that knowing field. And the knowing field informs them about the dynamics in the situation, in the system in which they are now representing, which they are now representatives of.
Right.
Okay, so you can have somebody representing somebody's mother, and she begins to behave in a way that is shockingly sometimes similar and well informed in her movement, in her words, even, or in the direction in which she's looking, who she feels related to, who she doesn't. Amazingly and shockingly resembling the experience of the client, say you, with your mother. Yes. And the same with father, and the same with siblings, and the same with other elements from the system. So the knowing field, that is it feeds the constellation with the information. And my job is to facilitate, open up the space, and to be able to read, to read these dynamics and simply put them into words. So the issue holder, the client, let's say you, have a clarity and an understanding for the insights that are coming through the representatives from the information that the fields offer.
Yes.
And now every time we try to explain what constellations are, usually people become more confused than they were, before they asked the question.
Yes.
So I'm not surprised if your listeners are actually a bit more confused than from when we started, but we have some time, so I'm sure we're going to get there with a little bit more, making it a little bit more understandable. It's a little bit, it sound a little bit weird.
Mariella asked a question. I have a question for you. But thank you for the explanation. But you're right, it is not an easy, straightforward kind of therapeutic method, so to speak. But Mariella is writing, what's the key of success? And in what percentage it's up to us? Thanks.
Success with regards to the process?
I don't know what she regards it to. Mariella, if you can be specific, I don't know if she means success is in the general sense. Literally, this is what she wrote. What's the key of success? And in what percentage it's up to us? Thanks. I guess she might mean how much agency, so to speak, we have in life. I really don't know. But Mariella, please, let us know more precisely what you exactly mean by success.
The question is about the success of the process, of the constellation process. I can say that what my commitment is as a facilitator of constellations is not to a successful end. Mm-hmm. My intention is not to have, if it's a couple or if it's a person experiencing a difficulty, it's not necessarily about, walking hand in hand towards the sunset and everything is tied with a bow. And it's not about that, because this work is not committed to necessarily a resolution. Right. This work is absolutely and certainly committed to insights.
Right.
It will give you a very, very different way to see what the situation is, what are the forces that are being playing out in any given situation. To say that I'm entering every session with the desire to create a happy ending,
yes,
or to relieve, to take my clients' problems away from them, I would not say that, because that's not what I do and that's not what I teach.
Yes.
As an outcome of the process, there is a lot of relieving of pressure, stress, depression, sometimes even suicidal tendencies can be shifted. But really, this happens as a byproduct of this new way of seeing. And I think that's very, very important. So actually, it's a very, very good question. Thank you, Mirella, for...
Thank you. Yeah, she's clarified now, I'll tell you. But thank you. So would you say that it's the process is aimed more at gaining awareness?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the process, what you gain is an increased awareness. Mm-hmm. Not only to the situation, but also to the role that you yourself are playing in it. Yeah, so that is definitely one of the outcomes of doing systemic work and constellations. Yes.
Thank you. And Mariella, then she's writing now, I'm wondering, ... what kind of success makes we realize our happiness and statements of mind and spiritual peaceful?
Sorry,
This is actually what she wrote. Yes, I know. I'm wondering what kind of success makes we realize, I guess she means makes us realize our happiness and statements, or a state of mind and spiritual peacefulness. Peaceful, but I guess she means peacefulness.
You see, this is a very interesting concept because it goes across the board, I think, with our society, you know, in the Western world and beyond, that there is almost like a panic around the subject of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Or another example is self-love, loving yourself. Now, if we look at it from a systemic perspective, if you grew up in a family that for generations, for whatever reason, yeah, and that usually involves a trauma, but if you grew up in a system that for generations could not entertain happiness, it wasn't part of the reality for whatever reason I mentioned, it's usually surrounding a trauma. Trauma can be personal trauma or what we call transgenerational trauma that happened in the history of the system. Now, if one grows up in a family where people could not love themselves, again, as a result of a traumatic experience, or does not able to have happiness, enjoy the benefits of happiness, how could these learning and knowledge be transferred to another aspect, another member of that family, say yourself or another person, if in the system it doesn't exist? The knowledge of how to do it does not present itself and didn't present itself. So just by trying to, you know, focusing on happiness, making happiness the aim, making self-love the aim, without understanding the underpinning forces that were there or that were not there in the system, can be something completely foreign, can be a completely different language, something that is not comprehensible and not processable because it doesn't exist in the systemic makeup. So we are not committed to make our clients happy. I'm not committed to. It's not about making them happy. It's not about you know, removing the bad, okay, removing the difficulty. It's about awareness and it's about insight as to the links. So imagine it is a process of connecting the dots. It's like dot to dot to dot to dot to dot to dot to dot. And then when you look at it, wow, you get an image. And this is the image of the situation. That brings awareness, increases the consciousness, because you don't see it anymore in the way you've seen this before. If you've seen this before, the problem would not occur. So really, this is about giving you that image, that new map, which enables you then to resolve. And I trust fully the process, and I trust fully my clients. So they will be able to connect the dots, and they will be able to take from the process everything that supports their healing.
Thank you. So, Mariella, let us know if Illi answered your question, or if you have more questions or something else you'd like him to clarify. But Natasha is asking now, is writing. Actually, I'm a little confused. Smiley face, red face. Then you see the relationship between the client and some stranger persons. Am I right? Just because the client pretend they are his relatives?
Okay.
Not sure.
So what I understand from the question is, how could a person that doesn't know the client stand in the room, represent the client's father, and know how to behave in order to inform the client about their own father?
Yes.
That's what the question is. Yeah. So first of all,
magic of it.
the representatives, they do not pretend.
No.
There's not even a role play. This is not psychodrama.
Yes.
You know, people are not stepping into somebody's shoes and try to behave like this person. No. Representatives are doing something very specific. They stand and they are present. That's all I'm asking my clients, my representatives to do. And as they are present, while they are present, I'm asking them to pay attention to any inner movement that emerges internally for them, from the inside of them.
Yes.
And if there is a movement, which means if they need to feel like there is something telling them to turn, then I tell them, feel free to turn. If it pushes you out, you feel like you want to be pushed out of the constellation, walk out of the room sometimes, do that, follow that. So it's a very subtle way of being in somebody else's place. And it's just about being open to the information that arrives from the knowing field. And if the information does not arrive, which also happens, that is also information. This is also guidance, because it means different things. And it's, you know, it will support and propel the process moving forward.
Yes, thank you. And you know, I'd like to share something that clarifies this, how it works for Natasha, but everyone else. I remember it was probably one of my first constellations, and it was with you, Illi. And I remember I was a representative, okay? And for me, it was so obvious that I couldn't have pretended anyway, because I tell you, every time I've been representing, you literally, like Illi said, you just notice, you're just being present, and you literally don't need to do anything. And I'm trying to explain what cannot really be explained in 2 words, but you get a feeling, like once in particular, this is what I'm going to share. I had this strong feeling, and it was a feeling that I had never experienced before, by the way. That's what was really interesting for me. I felt I wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry. And you know what? It has never happened to me in my whole life. In other words, if I have ever felt like crying, I would cry, okay? Or I would know that I can't cry here, but I would go somewhere else, but I'm crying, I know I'm crying. But that particular moment, I literally, is like the crying energy, that the sadness was bubbling in me, but there was another force that was not allowing me to cry. And then whoever was involved, because I didn't know anything about the person I was representing, and when I say the way I was feeling, it emerged that that person had difficulty in expressing his emotions. So you see, but for me, it was obvious that I couldn't have made it up, and it was a state of being that I had never experienced before. It was literally mind-blowing. So yeah, incredible. Anna then is writing, I know this kind of therapy, and it is very helpful after each section. I guess she means session, because it's very easy to see what happened in the past and in all family until grandparents. Evelyn, she's asking, will this be on YouTube? Yes, Evelyn, tell people that are not on the group that yes, they will, Bridges of Light will upload it on YouTube, so anybody will be able to watch this. Yes. Now, any other question? But Mariella, please let me know if the answer you got was satisfying. Then Mariella also wrote, you must have mentioned something, and she's writing, she wrote, I hurry up for what? Material success or spiritual growth?
What's the question? Why not both?
Why not? Absolutely. Yes.
They're not in contradiction from where I'm looking, and there's no contradiction. There is a place for this and for that, and they can be living happily ever after with awareness.
Yes. How much would you say, Illi? Again, I'm speaking because I feel the group is very much about karma and the soul, the spirit, the journey of the spirits, and so on and so forth. How much, okay, how how would you define karma, and how much do you think that karma, so to speak, for whatever you understand it, is playing a role, a part in the challenges that we face in this lifetime?
You see, from the terminology point of view, this can be quite confusing because people hold different beliefs,
Yes.
and there are all sorts of practices and philosophies and ways of looking at reality, at life, at the soul's journey, which I personally, I prefer the systemic lens. Because the systemic lens really offers me something that is tried and tested, and keeps on coming up with the goods, keeps on
Delivering.
allowing people to make their own sense of their own karmatic entanglements. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily use this terminology when it comes to the process. I would say that the process can be, it has almost like it's a two-faceted. You can look at it from two completely different perspectives.
Yeah.
The process can be very pragmatic. It will literally just give you information and insights about the state of a system as it is right now.
Right.
And I do work with organizations and with charities and with social entrepreneurs and with business people, and most of them, that's what they want to know. So you can do constellation for that purpose. However, every movement that we observe in constellation relates to something we call the movement of the soul. And the work can also be taken, received at a highly spiritual, from a highly spiritual perspective, because really this is one of, I wouldn't say even one of, I'd say that this is the only methodology, therapeutic methodology, that addresses challenges at the soul level. And
Yes.
that the intervention, the way that I offer my work, my intervention, I offer that so it touches, it triggers shifts and movements at the soul level. The work can do that. And we see it over and over and over again. So, it's up to you. If you want to look at it as something that is completely spiritual and include elements of past lives and karmatic influences and entanglements, of course, it's all there. I find that sometimes if I'm going too heavy onto these aspects of the work, it excludes a big number of people who simply want, a way to get a better insight onto what is going on in their lives. They
Yes.
don't necessarily wants to go down the rabbit hole, so to
Yes.
say. Yeah. For me, I don't have a problem with the rabbits or the holes. I'm just go straight in if I need to. And if I need to stay, completely pragmatic around business ideas with constellations, or looking at even a marketing strategy with a constellation, or looking at the future of a product or a future of an organization, which is something that I do, it will not sound so spiritual. So depends the context. It's all about the context, really.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes. Evelyn, she's asking, because she wasn't here at the very beginning, and she said, I don't know if you talked about it already, but no, we didn't, Evelyn. So here is a question, your question answer. She's asking, do souls have contracts before coming here?
From my own beliefs perspective, absolutely yes.
Mm-hmm.
What we see in the work also supports that. And sometimes there are situations where clients show up with an enormous amount of burden that they carry, an incredible amount of trauma. And, you can find yourself asking yourself, but why, why for a single person to go through all this? It's now we can look at it as a learning. And in the soul contract, we agree to that, to the learning. So in a way, anything that happens during our lives, anything that shows up in a way of a crisis, we can look at it as a lesson. We can look at it as a way, an opportunity to learn, to expand, to grow. And I use this metaphor a lot. Uh, if you're a parent, you know that when you have a child, a very, very young child, I'm talking in the first few weeks, first few months of life, when the baby becomes sick suddenly, yeah, maybe have a cold or runny nose, not sleeping at night, temperature, it would last 2 days, 3 days, and then the baby will recover. But then if you are a parent, you know this, you also notice that the baby has gone through some kind of a leap of his or her own evolution. Suddenly, motorically, the baby is more capable. Suddenly, verbally, the baby is more capable. So we see that through pain, through difficulty, through suffering, it excels the growth and the evolution of us as humans. Now, if this happens when we are, 5 weeks, 3 weeks, 10 weeks old, why would we assume that the tendency for us as humans to behave this way is disappearing? It's not something that happens only in the process of being a very young baby. So this is for me the guidance that I was looking for. Being a father for two, I've experienced it twice. It was the guidance that I was looking for to tell me that through these difficult experiences, actually, we are evolving. The evolution cannot happen without trauma.
Yes.
So I know I say this to my students, you heard me saying this many times, that trauma, difficult experiences, overwhelming experiences, it's like the stamp on the membership card of humanity.
Yes.
It's, if we are not traumatized, we cannot really be part of the human race.
Yes.
Because what is synonymous to all of us on this planet, in this reality, is that we are all, one way or another, traumatized, whether it's personal trauma or transgenerational trauma, something that happened in our family system before us, and that still affects us today. We know this because of epigenetic. If you want, we can talk about epigenetic in a minute. But the epigenetic component embedded, so imprints the trauma of our ancestors on the DNA, which then replicates to future generations. So we always knew it with constellations, and then about 15, 20 years ago, epigenetics research clarified that, showed that, and then we said, okay, now science is underpinning what we know from Bert Hellinger's work, from the person who created systemic and family constellations. So
wow, thank you so much. Wonderful explanation. I loved it. Now, Evelyn, she's asking another very clever question. Well done, Evelyn. And then also Mariella, she's asking more, but one at a time. So Evelyn is asking then, can we change the contract with our free will, or is it written in stones? The soul contract.
For my observations with this work, the contract has sections, different clauses, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And in our journey, sometimes we have accomplished something that relates to a particular clause of a contract.
Yeah.
And when we have finished, when we completed our turn, our whatever we need to have gone through in order to complete that, to accomplish that clause of the contract, the soul contract, we can let go of that aspect in our reality. So we don't need to continue to behave in a way that still teaches us about ourselves, about existence, because that part is already learned. This lesson is already taken on board. So we can tick it off. And if we're not sure, we're in a constellation, we can check that. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
We bring in figures of authority from the spirit realm, and we check with them, has the debt been paid? As the contract being completed, as the portion of the contract that relates to this behavior can be put to the side. So that liberates the person then on that level from being entangled in that learning, in that chapter that they needed still to experience, because they've already done it. So that is in a way to change the contract, because not everything that we have in our soul contract is relevant all the time. That's what my observations are. We can, we can move on. And then actually what happens is we go deeper and deeper and deeper into the finer and finer aspects of our soul contract as we grow with awareness, and we are able to go and go deeper and deeper into the core of our wounds, into the core of these learnings that are coming our way from existence as our life evolves, as our journey evolves.
Thank you so much. And by the way, Evelyn, she's writing, I love this conversation. Thank you. Mariella, she's saying, I think that we are born in a family who gives us some rules of life to grow up. Such a good adults to grow up as good adults in the future. But this kind of education can block our personality, our dreams, our capacity to realize our objectives and live the life we're looking for. Our life, right or wrong, but our life. Can I have the chance to doing some, I'm reading literally, so forgive me. Can I have the chance to doing something wrong with the consciousness to doing wrong on my own? Or do I always think the way my family told me? I choose the freedom to be myself, to doing wrong and having my experiences.
This is wonderful. This is a wonderful question.
Yeah.
Because we all believe that we are doing great, and we all believe that we are liberated, and we all believe that we run our own life and our own scripts, and we are liberated and we are free, and we are, we steer the direction of our own ship. Now, for a certain extent, this is true.
Yes.
And at the same time, what this work teaches us when we work systemically is that there are always what we call systemic entanglements.
Mm-hmm.
And systemic entanglements are a way to remain loyal to someone or something that happened, that took place in our family system. And this loyalty manifests itself mostly at the subconscious layer of our existence. It's not something that we can cognitively put our finger on.
Yeah.
And it happens, so to speak, under the radar. And everything that happens in the subconscious realm is the motivator and the inducer of behavior.
Yes.
So most of our behaviors, most of our decision making are affected by the subconscious realm, by the reality of the unseen. Now, if in our entanglements with someone or something in our family system, there is an innate inability to break free. Mm-hmm. Just to give a very, very quick example, I do a lot of work with clients from the Gulf countries. And these clients are on a journey, like you, like me, on a journey of growth, expansion, empowerment, awareness. However, most of them belong to family systems that never have had these sort of possibilities available to them because of the society, because of the politics, because of the religious aspects. For whatever reason, this was not made possible. So the people who coming from these countries who are actively in this process of growth and awareness experience crisis over and over and over again. Why do they experience crisis? They are on a wonderful journey. They make their own decisions. They choose their own freedom. They become more and more liberated from the restrictions of what they come from where they come from.
Yes.
But at the subconscious layer, they are entangled. They are entangled with all these who could not obtain or embark even on a journey of liberation, empowerment, and growth and awareness. So what creates the crisis is that they are held back. On the one hand, they want to run free and run up the hill, independence, autonomy, here I am. But then, whoa, something is holding you back, something is pushing you back. What is it that pushes you back? What is this force? I said we are mapping the forces, yeah, that plays up. What is this force that plays up? That is the force of loyalty.
Yes.
That is the force of belonging. And these two things, loyalty and belonging, are very, very powerful forces. They play up in all of us, whether we are aware to it or not. And what we begin to see and notice more and more in constellations is how we are entangled, with all those who came before us. And what is this pulling back power that happens in life when we try to do something new, when we try to change something?
Yes. Wow. Wonderful explanations. And I could see everybody loved it. I could see many, many things coming up. But so watch the replay yourself, Illi, when you can. Anna is writing. She wrote a while ago. On my opinion, with the constellation, it's possible to understand the trauma and the contract that the soul made before the last birth and changed or cut part of this.
Yeah, true.
Yes. Then Evelyn, she wrote, so ultimately, there are no bad experiences. It's part of the contract, unless, in capital letters, we choose to keep repeating the same thing over and over, making it bad for us, question mark. Is this right?
That is also in the contract.
Ah, beautiful. I like that spirit.
I shall do bad to myself, and I shall continue to do bad for myself over and over and over and over and over again. Fine.
Wonderful.
Until there's a moment, until crisis, and then you say, okay, stop. And then the possibility to stop,
yes,
by the individual coming to do a constellation, and that's the beauty with this work, is not only to stop it for themselves in person, but actually to bring healing into the entire system.
Wow.
So we send healing back in the system. Yeah, we would do something called ancestral healing. We are able to use and be resourced by our ancestors and to offer healing to them as much as they are able to support our growth, our healing in today and going forward towards the future for our children, children's children, etc.
Yes. And Evelyn, she wrote, F ... Well, why not? I'll say it. Fucking contracts. Laughing face. Hello, I see Swelly. Hello, Swelly. Welcome. And then Mariella says, I really thank you. Your substantial answers make me feel motivated. So
I'm glad to hear that.
Then you must have said something, Mariella, again. She ran right observations, 3 4 question marks. And Natasha is asking, will I meet the same souls of this life in my next life, even in different roles?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sure she will have a better answer to this than me. If she wants to, I can certainly facilitate for her a process where she can investigate that, when she can delve into this, open up whatever she needs to open up and ask questions and get, answers and support and resources and nourishment from a whole variety of sources. Ancestors I've mentioned, future lives I'm mentioning now. Soul contracts. So there is an infinite amount of resources and ways that we can get support for these questions, these journeys. So I wouldn't know. I don't enter a process by saying, I know what's going to happen, because in constellations is another thing. In constellations, we know where we start, but we have no idea where we're going to be taken, because we can be taken in the system in all sorts of directions. We can go down the mother's line, we can go down the father's line, we can go back into deep history, we can go into inner child work, we can go into soul contracts. So it really is so multidimensional that I have no idea where we're going to go, how we're going to go there. I know how we're going to go there, but I don't know where it actually leads, and I don't want to know. Yes. Because big part of this work relies on a principle called phenomenology. And in phenomenology, it's better that we don't know, because the process is informed but what transpires, but what shows up.
Yes.
And the principle relies on these as relevant. So things will show up because they have relevance to the process. And because they are relevant, we are including them. We harness them and put them into the process. So maybe by putting a representative for that thing that showed up, or bringing up as a question in the session, or in other ways. But mostly it's about being in a listening to what transpires, as opposed to have a fixed idea, or I know this, I know what's going to happen, and I know what needs to be done. It doesn't work like that. This is not what systemic work is about, and this is not what constellation is about. It's about inclusion of all the elements that are seen and that are unseen, and that they have relevance. So they will pop up, and they are simply going to have a message for the client, for me, for the other participants.
Yes, and this is one of the aspects that draw me so much to family constellations, and there's another one that I'm going to share. This is exactly which is cut the bullshit. Bullshit story, does our mental stories are not relevant. What is relevant, it was emerges, and what is right here in front of us. And something else which I loved about family constellations is, and you actually, one of your courses, I believe that it's titled On the Edge of the Unknown, which is a beautiful place to be. I mean, that title itself, to me, it's wisdom in itself, because life truly, if we want to live life to the fullest, we are always on the edges of the unknown. So being able to be comfortable to be there, it's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah.
But it's not many other therapies that their approach is based on this principle. Actually, many of them are based on theory, based on what we think we know, and the mind will steer the process where it thinks it should go. But this is a different concept, which I have, when I met family constellations and you, I mean, I thought, oh, this is amazing. I mean, it's mind-blowing. There's another question. Anna says, Mr. Illi Adato, Mr. Illi Adato, this is right. It is impossible to know when the process starts, which kind way come on, which kind direction. I mean, I guess she meant what kind of direction. So yeah, she's confirming absolutely what you say. Mariella is writing, I'm really fascinated by this interesting talking. Yes, because what Illi talks about is, from my perspective, from somebody that is as deep disto in all this that we're talking about, it's truly combining matter of fact scientific theories with the soul, with spirituality, with whatever you want to call it. Isn't it? It's a merging of the two. And it's yes, it is just a process that if anybody has ever never experienced it, I mean, I would truly invite you to have a go at it.
It's a truly life-changing process. You know,
yes, yes,
very serious possibilities for making very big changes in life, or you know, a lot of small changes, but really to see something in a much more clear and genuine way, you know, something that is loyal to not only the person's needs and wishes, desires, but also to everything that happened before we arrived: parents, grandparents, great parents, culture, country of origin, etc., etc., etc.
Yes, Anna is right. In this kind of therapy, constellation is magic, wonderful and clear. Absolutely. Yes, I'd like you to spend it, just because we only have like 5-6 minutes. Okay. I'd like you to get,
time flies.
Absolutely, incredibly fast. It's gone. Tell me, for us, but because this is, I'm being selfish now, because it's something that I think is very effective in life, but in working systemically. Tell us very briefly about what is gazing, or what is the ability of, I said, you know what, you're reminding me of this. I don't want to open a window, and we don't have enough time, but I think what is beautiful in family constellation is that we work on the individual, but at the same time, we work on the whole system. Yes. And it's this ability, and really, and that's also one of the reasons I wanted to hear, Illi, because I mean, you really are a master, but you have really this ability of being focused on one thing, and at the same time, really picking up, and I can see and feel that you are mapping it all out, so to speak. You know what I mean? You gaze in and out, in and out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gazing is a way to look at complexity without getting sucked into the independent details that makes the complexity. It's an ability to stay a little bit surgically removed. I like to call that. It's a surgical, so it's like the surgeon that has to be away from their emotions, and they're getting sucked into the process, because, you know, if a surgeon is going to start to say, oh, there's so much blood, oh, this bone is broken, the surgeon will not be able to do the work. So yeah, it requires some kind of an emotional or even a physical, logistical distance. Yeah. And the distance enables me to view the system, all the complexities that are happening within it.
Yes.
And not to necessarily get entangled with what I'm viewing, but rather keep an open way of observing and ability to receive a lot of information, big downloads from each and every system. So in a way, a constellation, you can say that is a kind of a reading. It's a kind of a mapping and reading. It can be, you can relate it to even tarot reading and other divination tools, because it is a way to look into a field of knowledge, which is very similar. And what resides within that invitation, with the intention that why are we doing what we are doing. So there's also a ritual aspect to it, because each constellation is in a way a ritual. Yes. Again, it depends who's asking, and I will use this terminology. I know here it's quite, you know, it's okay to use that, but if I work with business people, charities, I don't necessarily going to talk about this sort of terminology.
Yeah, but you can hear, and yeah, that's why I wanted to bring this.
You can draw a lot of parallels between an energetic reading or any divination and the constellation process. It's very, very similar.
Yes, yes, but I'd say, because I've been to many tarot readers and mediums and whatever, but here there is a component of that and the very deep therapeutic component. Which you may, well, you don't get it from a tarot reading. You may get some hints, but it's not
different, because it's not only a diagnostic tool or a mapping to get information about what's going on. It is also an interventional tool. So the process, yes, during the process in itself, I'm also doing the actual therapeutic interventions, and that is different from a reading. Yes, it's a reading different from a divination. That's true in that way.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much. And Illi, can I ask you to put you can put it in a comment, maybe your website or whatever, you know, if people want to.
Yeah, all my workshops, all my teachings and my sessions are listed on www.londonconstellations.uk. londonconstellations.uk. Everything can be found there. And there's a lot going on. I'm teaching online. I'm running introductory workshops so people can learn the basics of constellations. I'm teaching therapists to become facilitators of constellations, so they add it as an additional tool to whatever methodology they already use. And I work with a whole range of people and individuals about making better situations and difficulties in life. So come and check it out.
Yes. Well, thank you, Illi. Thank you so much. I'm really happy you accepted my invitation. Thank you, everybody. I love you all. And we're going to see each other whenever else in 2 weeks' time for another interview, and next Thursday evening.
Thank you, Luca.
Ciao. Thank you.
Bridges of Light.